Okay. All right. So let's look at a couple of them that I know we're done. I don't think anybody did it the same, which is good. That shows y'all are all trying to get an answer. And the biggest thing about this test that I wanted to see is if you understood loops and if you understood calling a function. So those were the two most important things. So even if you didn't get the Python to run, if your logic showed that you knew how to do that, that's what I was interested in, because every language, the syntax is a little bit different. So let's see. I think I separated out the 9:30. Make sure I did. Let's see. That's project test 3. Let's see. Y'all have to tell me who made all 50 points. Well, okay, Zachary and Brendan. Okay, so I think Caitlin did too. Let's see, Zachary. Let's look at Zachary's here. Okay, so what I asked you to do in the problem was to take the display message section out of your test 2. And so if your test 2 didn't quite work right, then you probably had to add something else to it to make it work right. But what you were supposed to do is make a call to the display message function, and you had to pass average. Some of you were able to get it to work without passing average just because of how Python works, so it recognized it. But the idea was, okay, here's where the main program in Zachary starts. There's his declarations. He used a counter, and then this is like his subtotal probably. Is that your subtotal of GPAs? Here's his input, first input for the name, which you only asked that one time, I think. And then the GPA, the first GPA. So this is the priming GPA. So he has something in there before he enters the while loop. And then the while loop, he enters. And the thing that some students were having trouble with, I know in another class, was that they would do the 999, but they still expected only 5 GPAs to come through. And so that's not what the problem wanted to work for any number of GPAs that would come through. So on this one, that's what he does. He has his, while GPA 1 is not equal to 9s, then he's going to add to his subtotal and also add 1 so that he knows how many GPAs are coming through. Why does he need to know that? That's how you would get the average, because you have to know if you're averaging 8 grades, then you're going to divide by 8. If you're averaging 3 grades, then, and it can be different depending upon how many they put through. Oh, you did it twice. What did you do it twice for? While GPA is the same as 9s, you should have worked without 2 while loops. And then this is how you broke out, I guess. Yeah, you shouldn't have needed this while loop. Why do you need this while loop?
I needed it because whenever you typed in 999, it would add it into my total GPA. So I just made a second thing so to take out 999 from my total.
Okay, so if you, it's where you placed this in your while loop, but you made it work. So, and you still did what you had to do. Okay, so then here is his call, and you'll notice he calculated average here, and when it broke out of the loop, then he passed that average up here into display message. And you remember, a lot of students had trouble with, why is the variable name different? Well, remember, when you pass, this is just a label and it's only known inside main. So when he passes it up here, he needs to give that variable another name, and then the variable A is only known while it's up in that function. So if we run it here and let's say, then we'll say 3.3, I think I had you do it with 3.4, 3.7, 3.8 maybe, can't remember. Did we do 5? Yeah, we did. That example I gave you was 5. And then 999. You are on the dean's list, and that's correct because it wouldn't be excellent student, right? So it's going to keep doing GPAs. So if I try to run his again and use more than 5, because some students made it just do 5, I want to show you how you can do less or more. Let's see. Let's say 3.9. 2.0999. It didn't give a message. Let's see. 3.06 should have fell where you are an average student, right, Zachary? So where it should have 3.06 should have been in between. A is, so it just, this was added, so it fell here. Wonder why that is. 3.06. I didn't even run it with all of the different combinations. So right here, let me see where it calculated it. Calculated it here. I would have to go and run it again with those. Okay, so does everybody see what happened? His came out 3.06. Well, according to our display message, it should have fell in here and said you are an average student, right? So does anybody see why it didn't? Any ideas? Okay, so what I'm going to see is when it breaks out and it calls it, I need to know where it fell. It fell here for some reason. Okay, let's see what A is. I don't ever have it print that out, right? Print. We're going to see if we can figure this out. A, oops, print. Oh, you did print A right down there. But printed A, and when it says print GPA print, where's that coming from? Oh, I don't think it ever gets to it. Whatever it does here, you see, you didn't put it into, you called it student print right here. So you don't ever actually print that, right? So if he says, what if you say print GPA print, comma, STUD. Okay, you guys see what I'm saying? I don't know if this is going to work, but you notice up here in his print, he moved his message into a variable called GPA print. But for this one, which is what the 3.06 should fall into, he named the variable student print, but he didn't ever print it out. So we're going to add this and see if that works. Does it look like it will? Anybody have an idea that it, whether that will or not? Okay, let's go here. And okay, so this would be, what did I say the last time? 3.3, 3.9, 2.0, 999. There we are. That's the only thing he did wrong, is that for the average, does everybody see what he did? If he would have left this at GPA print, wouldn't have had a problem, right? So he just wasn't printing out that message. Otherwise, his took only 3 GPAs, so it'll work with other than 5, and that's what we wanted to know for sure also. All right, and Brendan right here, right? That's his. Okay. See how Brendan did it? Open with idle. Okay, and see, he commented, that's what I wanted you to do. I gave y'all credit if you didn't do quite that much commenting. But this is just like as if you were doing pseudocode, right? So all that red is where he commented. So up here, defining, he defines his function. So this is the function out of test 2. And then down here, he set a constant called quit, declaring quit as a constant variable. Here's where he inputs the name. And then he prints out to the screen, enter GPA or 999 to quit. And so he says, what is your GPA? And that's where he initializes the control variable right there. Then he says, while GPA is not equal to quit, counter equals 0, total equals GPA. So this is his subtotal, right? Then for loop. Oh, but you did condition it on 5. So you're only going to let it take in 5 grades, right? Okay, see, that was where controlling number of times to ask for GPA. That's why I was trying to show y'all in the problem that that was just one example, because there's no need in having the 9s condition when to quit. Are you doing that for the number? No, you're comparing it to GPA. So yeah, there's no need in having the 9s if you're going to have the for loop that only takes in 5, right? But both of his loops work, so that's what I wanted to know. What is your GPA? 3.3, 3.4. So his will only work if I put more than 5, it's not going to take it. See, it went out automatically without needing 999, right? There was several people did it that way because they didn't know how to make it work with the 9s. So, but those are good. He did his loops right. Okay, who did it where the 9s actually control the loop?
I know about the where it says
John, okay. You did almost, and Jamie tried.
I tried to do the nested before.
Oh, that's what I remember you did. I thought yours did that too, didn't it? Didn't yours work? No? Okay, so John, yours is John JP, right? JM. What's your last name? I can't remember your last name. JM. Why do I not see it? I must have put it in a different spot. Sometimes when I'm gray.
I did T3.
Oh, this right here. Oh, you did do T3. Yeah, underscore JM. I don't know why I've got it somewhere else. Okay, let me go back to here and I can get it. I just downloaded again because I can't see where I downloaded it. Okay, so, oh, let me get to the right class. Is this our class? Oh, well, let me see. Oh, I think this is the 12:30 class. No, I don't want to show that one. Come on. Give me a hard time. Okay, so I got to go back this way and do it. It's telling me not to do it that way. Oops. I don't want to do grades, go into grades is why. I didn't want to do it that way, but Let's see here. Oh, here's another way I can do it. Let me go here and just search for, yours is JM, right? Okay, let's do this. T3 underscore JM. There it is. Okay. All right, so this is yours, right, John? Did I get the right one? Is that yours? Yeah, there must be another JM. I guess I didn't think that. JMY? No. Okay, so let me just do it this way and make sure that I get yours. I'll have to go into, I don't want to record. Okay, so it must be right here. That's it, right? Okay, so here's where at the beginning of the program, you can always put your inputs, but the main starts before the function, as long as, I think this was it in this class? Somebody was putting the function at the bottom. Maybe it was my 1230 class. The function in Python always has to be before it's called. So like he calls it down here at the bottom. So as long as it's above that. But he starts off his program. So it starts off, he asks the username, he asks the first GPA, and then he initializes the accumulator. And this is the total counter that'll tell him how much to use for his average. So it executes this, then it skips over his function and starts down here with the while loop. It says, while user GPA is not equal to all nines, then add to the accumulator there and add to the counter and then ask for another GPA. So this is all your loop should have had to do in order to drop out at all nines, but somebody had trouble with that, right? Okay, so I don't know if it's the way his is placed that made it different. I'll have to, well, I want to look at some that you did it like this and you couldn't get it to work, okay? Because this one should have been how easy it was to work. First, I'll see if it works with 5, and then we'll go to more. There it is, 3.6. So it worked. Now let me try it again with less numbers. So if I say, let's try a 4.0. Now it's a 4.0 and 4.0 and stop. 999. There you go. Very good. So that's really, I'm not sure. Okay, who did it like this and couldn't get it to work? We want to look at yours.
I got mine, mine was not, it was only printing two values, no matter how many times I entered something. And it never actually calculated the average. It would just give me the sum of the numbers.
Okay, let's see.
I know I did not have everything set up correctly because I couldn't remember how to.
Okay, let's see how, if I can get to yours. It's not letting me get to yours for some reason.
Without asking how many times you were going to enter.
Monday, a week ago, before the test, is that you have to have those 3 things in your while loop. You had to have the priming, where you ask for a GPA before you entered the loop, then you test that control variable, and then at the bottom of the loop, you've got to ask for another GPA. And so that may be, I don't know, let's see if that was what Jamie's was. I think I had yours over here where I wouldn't have had to download it.
a screenshot saying there was an error, which I didn't get that error when I ran it, so I don't know why it was giving me an error.
Okay, let's see if I can get that same thing here. Sometimes the Windows gives a little different. Are y'all seeing the side yet? Okay, so this looks good, but you shouldn't have to pass back the average.
Yeah, I was having issues with getting it to pass it back because it was saying that it wasn't like.
Yeah, you don't have, when you make the call, where's your call? Right here. Well, you don't need to pass it back because that's where you're making the call and you're printing out the message here, so you don't need it there. So let's take, well, let me run it first and see if I get the same error you're talking about. Okay. Right there. Is that the one that I got?
Yeah, that's the error. Like,
Float division by 0. Okay, so what that's telling me is that GPA number is 0. And so it won't run because it's trying to divide down here where you put GPA number equals 0. It was evidently the first time it tried to do this right here,
I see what it is.
it was 0.
Yeah, I guess.
See, that needs to,
Where I added the 0 or what? Because there was a place where it was like GPA number equals or plus equals 1.
okay, so right here, it needs to go inside here and you say AVG, or no, what's your one called? GPA number? GPA number. So this is where she's trying to determine how many times to divide. Can be plus equals 1, right? Okay, let's see if that helps. So you see what she had left out was here, right here, she was coming right into her loop, and up above she had initialized GPA number to 0. So it was still 0 and she was trying to divide by 0. Let's see if that helps. Oops. Bring this. Oh, get everything out of the way always. Okay. So here's student name. 3.3. There we go. 3.4.
That's what it was doing.
Okay, you are on the dean's list. Okay, so
Adding, but it's not dividing by anything.
well, what happened is you put the actual, you don't want this until you're outside the loop. So this needs to go,
That's what I was pretty sure was wrong because
so this needs to go right down. Well, it can go here because you're, what are you calling it though? AVG, Command V. You can either, yeah, because the, and your call actually needs to go outside their loop. Let's see here. Command X. After you determine the average, then you make a call. And you don't need to return anything. So up here, we want to take this off too. Let's see. So then after you make the call, do you print inside here too? You print the message. So you don't want to print the GPA. You probably just want to print the, do you ever print the average anywhere?
that I don't think I put that on your.
Okay, so here's what you want to print out is actually the average, and it would be called AVG. Okay, let's see what that does. It's usually about putting things in the right places. They're just not in the right places. Okay, 3.3, 3.4, 3.7. There's 5. Now we should be able to enter 999. Enter. There you go. Oh, the average is wrong, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's look at the average. Okay, so everything works, but the calculation isn't right. GPA. So each time it goes in here, where's your, okay, there's your initial one. Okay, I need to see what. Oh, we didn't add into a total either. You didn't add into a total field here. So y'all see she's missing her subtotal also. So if we say total, you didn't even create one, right?
No.
Equal or plus equals, we can actually say plus equals GPA. So then I've got to put total equals 0 up here.
Where the average equals that needs to be changed to the total, then they're trying to type it.
Average, oh yeah, okay, this would just say by total. Okay, let's see what happens now. Oh, I did that wrong, 3.8. There we go. Now it did it. 3.5 is the dean's list. Oh, and the average, your GPA average is 3.57. So it did actually print it.
Okay.
Yeah, printed it in your message, so we didn't have to do it at the bottom.
That bottom part was part of the test two, that I just didn't
Take that out, okay. So now you see, here's the same while loop like what John did, has those same parts like his did. She has the control, the priming one to set the control variable, because the control variable is GPA. Then she tests the control variable, does something here in the body of the loop, and then she has to alter the control variable. And see, that's here in each one of them. So those were the things that I told you to be sure that you had those 3 things in your loop. And that should have worked for yours too, Zachary. I don't know why yours wouldn't work like that, because you should have had just this one while loop like that. I think yours too, Brendan. We'll have to go back, and we won't in class. But does anyone else want to look at theirs in class? Okay, so does everybody understand the test? How to do it? Because you won't be able to get loops. List and arrays until you understand loops. So be sure, Samuel.
I think mine was like the
Zachary's.
Yeah, I printed the 999 and it averaged.
Well, let's see why it does that. Because he got out of his with the break. Let's do one more, and then we'll still have time to do that head first portion, I think. Okay. Oh gosh, I think that last one I forgot to. No, I got it back started. All right. So yours right there. I think I had an SN, PYSN. Oh, no. She's going to keep calling me. Let's see here. Let me find it. PYSN. Okay, so if you had trouble with those 9s, okay, Samuel's is pretty simple here. He's got the function up at the top. And then, now I can see too, one thing that this excellent student will work, it should drop in both, but most of y'all didn't do that, so I'll leave it that way. Student name, here's his input, there's his function, here's his, now here you didn't, this is actually the initialize. Oh, that's because you did this for loop in here. Okay, here's where it was, where several of you did this. See, what you did, Samuel, is you actually defeated the purpose of a loop, because you're testing here and you're still having 5 GPA variables, and then you're just adding them together here. Okay, so what you need to do is go back and fix that while loop. You actually would not use the for loop. So you don't need, that's why I was telling you all you only need one loop, because this portion here goes outside the loop. All of this goes outside the loop. Okay, the only thing that your loop was supposed to do was to determine if I'm finished entering GPAs. When I get finished entering GPAs, then is when I should calculate the average, and you can print the average if you want, but then you would actually display right up here. You display this way. So you don't need this at all. So this is not actually the initialize. This is actually the test of the control variable, right? You see? Remember we went over this on Monday before the test. This is the test. This is actually the initialize step, right? Oops, I didn't spell it right. Initialize step. And then this one, let's see, then you should have this input at the bottom. So we'll just call this GPA 1 again. And it's in the bottom. So this is your alter of the loop. I'm sorry, of the control. And so we don't need any of these right here.
Does it automatically just average the one that you entered, like?
Okay, watch what it's doing. No, you got to have a total. And it's going to dump it into another one. Okay, so watch what's happening. I know what you're saying. That's why the loop
Okay,
didn't.
so you put like 2 other variables in there, like count or like.
Correct.
And you put
Correct.
0. And then you inside the loop you say plus equals 1 to each of
That's
those.
correct.
And each time it will add 1.
And so then it can overlay GPA 1. So here, so if you have one called total, oops, total plus equals GPA 1 is what we're going to call it every time. So we're going to add that GPA that he just read in up here. And then what you said, we need one more thing. What did we need?
You need like a count or something set
Yeah.
to 0, but you'll want it to plus equal 1, and that's just will divide by the average.
That's correct. So now this one needs to scoot up here. Let's see if I can get it up there. Okay, so that's the actual end of the loop right there. And then when he drops out, the only way he's going to drop out of this loop is if they enter all 9s. And down here, this has to change to total. And then it'll probably make me also initialize counter and total to 0. Total equals 0 and counter equals 0, because it won't know what they are. So you have to name them. All right. And most of the ones that tried to use a list, which we'll talk about later, but I told them in their answer that it was wrong. They didn't initialize the list. So we'll talk about that. All right. So this one, Now it should, oh, instead of dividing by 5, what do we divide by? Counter. Okay, so now we can have any number we want. Your average is alter. Okay, and this isn't the alter. This is just printing it out. It's what you did there. And so you're printing out the average, and then you're running the function. Now, in his function, he called AVG. No, that won't work. So we can either change, let's see, this is what we want to pass, AVERAGE, but up here you called it just AVG, right?
Yeah, and then I passed it into the function as AVG equals AVER.
But see, you don't need to do that but you need to ask the question if you don't understand why you don't. You see, here in the main function, it's known as AVERAGE, right?
Yeah.
So that's what the label for it, but the value, you're just passing the value up to this function and dumping it in a different name, different label. See, because once this leaves this function, it doesn't know what it is inside this function. Oh, wow. Key thing fell apart. Key fob. Okay, so once you pass it, you've got to rename it. And that in that head first book, it talks about that. These are called stacks. And every function has its own stack of variables. And so you can pass the value of a variable, but you can't pass its name. You want to change its name. Okay? That's something y'all should understand after test 3. I'll have to put that back in there. All right, so if I run this now, you following, Ty? You following what we're doing today?
Because it says like not equal to 999 output average.
Right, it won't because it should drop out. So let's see if I just do 4, if it'll work, or 3. Nope. Okay, that's because that's something to do with student name. Let's look what we did with student name. Where's idle? I lost idle now. This one. Okay, so there it is. Okay, print student name. Oh, you never did ask for it. See, it's saying print student name. You just never did ask for it. So you did right here, but look, there's not an equal sign. It was a colon. All right, Isaiah, are you seeing from back there? Okay, be sure. I know you didn't. Just ask me a question. Okay. 9, enter 999. There we go. So now it works. All right. So I tried to make it down to where it was just a simple while loop. That's why I went over Monday those parts to the while loop. And so if you still not sure you understand it, you need to watch this lecture video when I get it posted up to YouTube later on today. And because then you can fast forward and back and say, what was that? So it's a really good learning tool. If you don't know how to get to those YouTube videos, you need to let me know. All right. Sure, that's all going. Okay, so we're ready for the head first book. Did anybody try to do that? I know somebody in my online class did. Anybody tried to look at it yet?
Yeah.
You did, Brendan? Did you get it? No? Okay. All right. Oh, the pages? Okay. Well, in my book, it's different than in the PDF, and most of y'all are probably using the PDF anyway. So if you don't know where that book is, you need to, I have it loaded there on a link. So does anybody not been able to find that book called Head First? Okay. So I'm going to open it first. And we're going to look at, actually, I should have opened the assignment first. Get back here so we can see the confusion about the page number. You all, sometimes there were people in my class that had the actual book, and so that's why I put both. But this module 4, this doesn't mean just this week, but module 4 is what we're going to do at least up until the last week of classes. We may that last week just try to review everything. But you remember the calendar's getting short, so we're doing this week, we're talking about input files, and then on Wednesday we're going to talk about actual arrays and lists, and I'm going to do them out of the Head First book first. So that's why I went ahead and backed off of the MindTap assignment being due this week, okay? Because I like the way Head First explains it, but then there's some things inside the MindTap that we need to go over also. So, but I think you'll get a good idea about text files. You know how with the GPAs, we had to just keep entering them, right? Well, if you had a text file, you know what a text file is, right? Not a WordPress file, or not, not a Microsoft Word file, just plain text where you've got all the GPAs in one file that you want to read in. You can say, read that file, and it will loop until the end of the file. And that's what we're going to do in this Head First chapter. So in this assignment, it says, read and do the files exercise and submit from page 155 in the PDF, or if you have the actual book, it was page 119. And here are the 2 files that you will submit for this assignment. Okay, so we're going to go over now to page 155 in this book. That should be, actually it's before 155 where it starts, but let me just say, go to page, then I can go back. Okay, so that's the part that you're supposed to do, but we're going to start at the beginning of this chapter. Okay, so this chapter talks about data in files and arrays. So those are actually files in MindTap are not covered until chapter 7, and the way they do it, I think they make it a little more difficult. So we're going to go ahead and do files and arrays at one time, and we're going to talk about files first. So when we've been asking for user input, that's just a way to get data into our program, right? To process. So there's many different forms or ways to get data into a program. And so the other 2 ways that we're going to talk about this semester are files and arrays. And so that's how data is stored. So that's what this talks about in this chapter. It says, as your programs develop, so do your data handling needs. So as a programmer, I don't know why that's there. As a programmer, you have to know how to process data in a lot of different forms. And some of the type of containers, which we're not going to talk about in this chapter, in this semester, because we can't get into it, is data. It's called data structures, the way it is formatted, the way the data is. And like, has any of you ever done anything with Microsoft Access? Okay, that's a database. So that's a particular way that data is stored. And in a database program, you define which order you want the data to be listed in the file. Like when you go into, say you wanted to store all of the names, titles of the DVDs that you own, which y'all probably don't even own any anymore, but that used to be a big collection, okay? Now you got them all on virtual, but anyway, or streaming or whatever. So, but if you were storing a title and then maybe what year it was in, what actors, the order you put those fields in, then you can ask the database to print those out for you. All right. So here, Surfs Up in Codeville. So you remember in this Head First book, it's kind of giving you a problem like an analogy, like you're in a surfing contest. So here, because there are so many contestants, the organizer asks you to write a Python program to process the scores of everybody. So here's the surfathon. The scoreboard is currently empty. Wonder who won today's contest. Okay, after the judges rate the competitors, the scores are stored in a file called results.txt. So all of the scores are stored there. And I also, at the end of this module, you'll see where I gave you all of these programs actually answered in a zip file. So if you can't get yours to work. But here's what that file looks like. And you can't hardly see it, so let me get it a little bit bigger. So if they record all these, all of these in a, in a file, like it says, this is what a text file would look like. And on the Mac, I created in something called TextEdit. You can use Notepad. It doesn't put characters in there. If you try to use Word and type in a text file, it'll put weird characters that you can't see in there, okay? So you have to use something that is what's called a plain text editor. So what we did is we typed all these scores in and we put a name beside them so that we'd know whose score it was. And then we want to determine what the highest score is. So we want to read this file in, which is the results, and we want it to give us, we're gonna do it with just this small number of scores, but maybe you had 500 applicants, okay? Well, you don't want to have to read through all of them and try to determine, oh no, I found a bit higher score. No, now I found a not higher score. So we're going to do the same type of logic, only with a smaller number, okay? So we're going to assume we just have this many entrants into the surfing contest, and we've stored those scores with the person's name in a little text file. Now, it sounds simple enough, except for one small detail. You've written programs to read data from the web and to read data that's been typed in at the keyboard. Do you remember in the beginning of the semester, I showed you one where it went out and got an HTML page and it read that in from the web? So that was one way that we read it. It's like in chapter 2, maybe in Head First book. I can't remember for sure. And so then all the rest of the semester, we've been reading in from the user inputting the data, one piece of data at a time, right? Okay, so now be sure you're watching this and asking questions, because this is the one that has to be done by midnight tonight, okay? So be sure, and I will know whether you just copied mine and put it in there. Okay, so be sure you understand I gave you one that works so that if you can't make it work, you can maybe see what I'm doing. But here is what we have to do when we open up a file. We're going to iterate, which remember we've used that word for loops, right? We say iterate through the loop means reading one in, doing something to it, getting another value, and go through the loop again, right? That's what the word iterate means. Iterate through the file with the open, for loop, and close pattern. So on a file, you always have to open it, and then you loop through it until you get to the end, and then you close it, okay? So here's what we do. The call to open creates a file handle. That's what this variable, it's just a fancy name for the variable. They named the variable result underscore F. Okay, result underscore F. Now this portion of reading in a file is really important. Okay, you guys need to be paying attention and see if you can get this. So file handle is just a variable name, but they called it result underscore F because that makes a little more sense. The name of the file is result, and it is a file, so that's why they named it that way. But you can name it anything you want. You don't have to put underscore F. You can just call it results, okay? But the important thing is this right here. If you don't put in quotes the exact name of the file that's in your folder, it won't open it. I wouldn't say result underscore F here because it doesn't know what that is. I'm opening the file of the exact name that's on, it's got to be in my same folder with my program. Okay, so where my Python has to be in the same folder on my computer as that file or it won't find it. If you understand paths, you could do that, but we're not going to work on that. So here in Head First, what I like is they give you all these little notes to help. Put the actual name of the file to open it here. And here is the variable name called result F. All right, so because you'll need to read the file one line at a time. See, we can only read this line and then this line and then this line. We can only read one line at a time. You can't read the whole file at once, okay? So we're going to, like while loops, the for loop loops permanently. I don't know. I had notes there. I guess they're not showing up. Okay, like while loops, the for loop runs repeatedly, running the loop code once for each line of the items in something. Think of a for loop as your very own custom-made data shredder. Because when the file looks like this on a sheet of paper, you can only process one line. In the old procedural-oriented languages, these were called records. Or if you work in the database access, this is called one record. And one record has, in this case, has only two fields, the name and the score, right? So each line has to be cut apart, and you use the for loop to do that. Okay, so it's showing you a picture of what's happening with that for loop, how it works. So the way it works, it says, note, unlike a real shredder, the for loop shredder doesn't destroy your data, it just chops it into lines. The entire file is fed into the for loop. So how do you know when it's going to stop? Because we've said that a for loop is a definite loop, right? So how are we going to set that for loop up where it just stops? Each time the body of the for loop runs, a variable is set to a string containing the current line of text in the file. So when you ask for input by the user, it comes in as a string, right? So now what's happening is you execute the for loop right here. It says for each line. Well, each line is simply another variable name. That's all it is. It's a variable name.
Do they define the variable though?
What's that?
Do they define the variable though? Does the program already know?
Yeah, because this is a string, so you can just set it up without initializing it in Python. You're saying like when we did total equals 0 or like that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to.
No, you don't have to define a new variable here because it just knows that you're going to dump whatever it just read in, you're going to dump the first line of it in here. So that's what it's telling you here. Open the file and give it a file handle. Then each line variable is set to the next line from the file on each iteration of the loop.
Oh,
Okay? The for loop stops when you run out of lines to read. So you don't even have to count with this for loop how many times. A for loop in Python is smart enough that when it gets to the end of the file, it just stops and drops out, and then you close the file. Okay? So you're saying result F equals open for each line in result F, print each line, close the file through the file handle, and you're done with it. Okay? Are you doing this one? Because I'm going to be sure Isaac can hear back there. Okay, so, all right. So, code magnets. You need to complete this one, and it gives you everything to complete it. So here, we're going to read in our file. Now, why did we need this variable that says highest score equals 0? That's what we want to know, right?
Yeah.
And so, every time, that's the only thing we added, was an initialize. For the program to work, you needed to convert the string into a number. So the part that has the name in it, we're not going to be able to do anything with it. We just want to determine which one of these scores is the highest, right? So when we do that, we say for line in result F. So they changed each line to the variable line. Okay, this time they called it line. So here's the body of the loop. If float subline is greater than highest score, then make highest score equal to whatever was in that line. So each time through, you're just comparing it to the previous score. That's all you're doing. After the loop runs, the highest score variable should have the best score from the data. So you can then go ahead and display it on the screen. Okay, Brendan, you tried to do it, right? So where did you have trouble?
I had trouble getting reading the file. That's where I got.
That's fine. I did it too.
Oh, reading the file, did you have them in the same folder?
No.
That's what it was. If you see okay, let me show you this. When we looked at results, you see the name of this one is probably, here's results, and it's in the same file. Let's see if it's this one that we read it. That one's a little more complicated. Here's the one that you had to do, I think. Yeah, is that the one that what page is the one on that you have to do?
119.
Okay, that's it. All right, so this is the one that you have to make run in the zip file. So the only reason you couldn't get it to read the file is because this file was probably in a different folder. See, in mine on Finder here, which yours would be in Windows Explorer if you're in Windows, this program, page 119.py, and my results.txt are in this chapter 4 folder. Were yours in the same folder, Joseph? If they're not in the same folder, it won't work because it can't find this file, or you misspelled it or something. He's called me hundreds of times. So, anybody else try to do it? Couldn't get it.
But I didn't know how to split up line, which now I do.
Okay, well, I didn't go over that. I'm not probably going to have time. But okay, if you keep reading, it talks about. Okay, I had you do this one, right? That's the only one. So you didn't have to split a line yet. You only had to do this one.
Well, because it gives you an error message.
Oh, yeah, it gives you an error message. Okay, yeah, I didn't finish, did I? I should have told you to do. Okay, Python strings have a built-in split method. Remember, what other built-in method did we use at the very beginning of the semester? Range wasn't built in, but what? Random. Remember, we did random. So split is another built-in function. So it will actually split that line in two so that you can just work with the scores, because name is a string and the score is a float value, right? So you can't test highest score with the name. All right. So when the first one that you do, I need to change that assignment to say, it should be this one, which is ran on right here. So this is actually page 125. Okay. So you need to read all the way to page 125. And I know our time's up, but I think you will understand because of what we went over this morning. Okay, so this is what we have so far, but what happens is it gives you that error. Yes.
So do you want us to upload the one with the split function?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of the one that gives you an error.
Yes. If students upload the other one with the error, I'm going to give you credit because if you've already done it. But this, I want you to do the one with the error and then put this one that works up, because what happened is it was trying to compare a string to a number, right? That's why it gave you that. Where was that on 119? Isn't that the error it gives?
119 is actually the questions. It doesn't actually ask you
To do it.
the script.
Yeah, it says value error could not convert string to float, because the first thing it looks at in that line is the name. And so since it looks at the name, it's trying to compare the name to the highest score. And it can't. It says, I can't do that. That's a value error. Okay. All right. So on Wednesday, now remember, you have to put something in even where I can see that you've worked this, because I even give you the answer. So that's an easy 10 points, right? So be sure you put that in, but still yet on Wednesday, we're going to go through some more of this. So if you have read through here and see what your questions are, if you come to class with having done it like a couple, three of you did, it helps you know what you have questions about. So in this class, you should never come to class without having done something and have questions. That's what's been hard all semester. If you do that, you'll have more success. But I know college students. Okay, so I should not generically say that. Some are not like that. And some of you are mending your ways, right? You're going to come to class having tried to do the work. All right, you guys have a good next couple of days. Be sure and don't forget then at midnight tonight, you have to have 2 assignments in. The one where you view the video and this one. Head first, chapter 4, I'm sorry. Okay, and I'll go in and correct that where it has the corrected one.
Is there the one with the video, the videos we've been watching?
Do what now? What'd you say, Sam?